I'm going to give you guys some pointers for if you're building an amp from scratch. This is a Firefly amp. It's a low wattage. I think it's like a 1 watt or a half watt amp. So I'm building it from scratch, and I'm not necessarily following the directions that come with it. I'm kind of making my own layout to a point. You do want to follow the layout as much as you can as to like where the transformers go, the way they're positioned and stuff, and where the tubes are. You can space them further apart, but you don't want to turn them. You don't want to get them closer together, or you risk causing hums because there's all kinds of invisible frequencies that come out that will make humming sounds. So getting it to this point is pretty much anyone can do this. Let me turn it over. It basically, I've attached everything. It's just a matter of measuring and stuff, measuring where you're going to put stuff. This is a custom chassis. This is like, I think I found this piece of metal at work. It was probably from like a refrigerator or a stove or something. I think it's aluminum. Get lots of little rulers and measuring devices. Measure out your stuff. I can make like a 3-hour video showing you me doing this, but I just don't think that's necessary. I could just show you in a couple minutes, giving you some pointers. How did I do this? I marked a very precise line so high from here, and I took that same measurement and marked it over here, and then I drew a line all the way across so these are like, see how that's perfectly spaced? It looked like it came from the factory. And then I put a ruler out and I figure what my spacing was, and I spaced them every so many millimeters or whatever. I got them to the right height so they'd actually fit in there, because those are some pretty big potentiometers. Before I drew any lines on this chassis, I got tape, blue tape, and put it over the entire chassis so I could draw all over it, and there's no lines on my chassis. So anyone can get to this point. It's pretty simple. It's just you're mechanically putting the parts there, right? Got the transformers laid, the tubes in there. For the tubes, the best thing to do is go to Harbor Freight, and they have this, it looks like a big triangle thing. It's like this triangle drill, and it's like a step thing. It's got a little hole, and then it goes to a bigger hole and a bigger hole until you get to the right size. I'd suggest getting one of those. Harbor Freight sells them. I think they're like $10 or something. They're not as good a quality as the $70 ones you'd buy at Home Depot, but do you really need that? Mine's lasted for about 2 years, so I'm all for getting the cheaper one. So once you get it to this point, it looks complicated when you have where's the wiring diagram? If I could find it here. I got so much stuff here. Here's the wiring diagram. It may look complicated at first, but once you break it down, you get it to this point where you got everything mounted. You got some wires coming out here and there. So you do that, and then your next step is wiring the circuit board. So you just wire up the circuit board, right, before you put it in. And I'm starting on that. I got the circuit board wired. You go through it piece by piece as you do it. You put a wire and you right on the end of it where it goes. It'll make it easier. And then once you're done with the circuit board, which this is only half of it, I'm starting on my second half. Once you're done with the circuit board, then you just mount it in there where it goes, and you connect wire to wire. Just follow it where it goes, I'd suggest doing this route as opposed to, they have a PC version of this. They give you a PC board. This, I don't know, maybe it's easier, but the tubes are mounted directly in the PC board, and you know, it's probably fine because this is such a low wattage amp and you're not going to use it all that much, but over time, with lots of use and moving it around, the tube sockets have a tendency to crack on the solder joints, and then they go bad. And then you have to take it all apart and figure out which soldering points have came apart and resolder it. But something like this, where the tubes are not mounted to the PC board and there's wires, that's going to last forever. There's amps that are 60 years old that the wiring's still perfect, you know. It's as good as the day it was first built. The only thing you have to do is replace the capacitors. Now, the layout, as you can see, I'm putting some pretty good spacing in there. I could scrunch it up and get it much closer, but I decided I'm going to kind of space it out, so in the future, if I ever have any problems, it's easier to diagnose and I could take stuff out. You want to pay extra close attention to the capacitors. Make sure that these are easily accessible, because, you know, in 10 years from now, they'll have to be replaced. So you'll have to snip this out and put a new one in, because you got to replace those up to 5 years. They last anywhere from 5 years to 40 years. And I think it depends on the climate, like where you live and stuff, how warm or cold your house is. I live here in California, so they tend to last a really long time. And if you notice, this is different. I've got a big tone stack here. It only comes with the Firefly comes with just a volume and a boost. So I'm splicing this tone stack right here where this comes out. Basically, I'm cutting it off right here and cutting it off right here, and all this is going to be replaced with a tone stack, and Marshall tone stack. And here's a Marshall tone stack. This is actually a diagram of a twin reverb, but the tone stack's similar except for the values are different. So I changed the values. So I'm going to graph this on here. All that's going to be grafted on there. And then I'll have a nice, cool sound. Hopefully it'll sound like a Marshall. But, I mean, this is the best mod you can do to get any amp to sound like a Marshall, is putting a Marshall tone stack on it. It's not going to sound exactly like a Marshall because there's some differences in the way everything else is wired up, but I'd say the tone stack makes the biggest difference. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next video.